I mean, I just don't think people understand. Once you get a computer that has autonomy the way that we predict they will, it's not going to be Terminator. It's not going to be the machine stand up one day with a red light and they kind of walk towards your front door and say, "Come out, we're now in charge." You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senator?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die. Good evening. Welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us and help support the movement, help fund the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And this is episode, what again? 262?
Yes, sir.
Episode 262. We got a reaction episode today, our Wednesday reaction episode, and then Friday I'm going to talk about the Larry Hoover situation. Recently, or in recent news, Larry Hoover was given a pardon or a commuted sentence by President Donald J. Trump, which is a pretty historic thing to happen for the country, I think, and I'll talk more about it on Friday. And even as a preview, I couldn't believe the response I heard to the news that Donald Trump had pardoned Larry Hoover. A lot of these gangs, and I'm going to have a few former gang leaders on in the coming weeks as guests to talk about, that era and some of the things that went on and how some of the things that went on really shaped what America is today, especially in the inner cities or in our Black communities regarding gangs. But, what started as a civil rights movement, I think, became a more street gang, or let's call them, unofficial gang organization that then became inundated with drugs and violence, gun violence. The gangs and gun violence and drug trafficking that we see in America today is certainly not what it was when these gangs were first started, such as the Gangster Disciples there in Chicago. There were still gangs, there was still violence, quote unquote, fights and things like that. And there was certainly still drugs, much, much harder to get, much more expensive. And the crack epidemic sort of changed the entire crime situation in this country, or crime culture. It definitely changed the Black culture, but it really just changed the country in general. And it's one of first of all, Donald Trump pardon, and I'm just going to talk about this for a moment before we get going with the reactions. First of all, Donald Trump pardoning Larry Hoover is just a legendary move politically. And one of the things you got to love about Donald Trump is he has a way of doing things that get everybody in an uproar on every side of any issue. But slowly and surely, they start to reveal who people really are on any side of that particular issue. And this one was especially ironic to me because in one echelon of the political left here in America, you have white liberals or progressives or whoever else in that cohort claiming that the American justice system is corrupt. I'm sure you've heard that before, Tanner. that the American justice system is corrupt and inherently racist, and that people are overly incarcerated. And in some cases, they were wrongfully incarcerated and incarcerated for things that the government either participated in or basically, lack of a better term, more technical legal term, is they entrapped them in, right? And all of that is true. Now, is the legal system inherently racist? That I would have to argue. Now, if you want to go all the way back to the origins of police and what police are and how they got started and their role in what they used to call slave catching and things like that, okay, we could say that some of the precursors of the current or modern American justice system had some racist or racism to it, had racists in it.
I think you could argue the prison systems.
The
I guess.
prison systems well,
Yeah.
we'll get to it. I want to get to it. I'm glad you said that. There is a distinction that should be made between policing and the prison system and the
Right.
courts, but all in all, they're kind of the same thing. They are kind of one entity. And if you really want to get technical, I said this, I'm going to post tomorrow um, an hour-long interview that I did with the New York Post regarding George Floyd, which kind of ties into this topic as well in some sense. But um, policing, the justice system or the courts, uh, and the prison system are all different rungs of the military-industrial complex. And that may be hard for some people to understand, but essentially they are. Especially policing. But anyway, the point is that you'll have some on the left argue that you know every black man that's in prison is just a product or a symptom of a racist and unjust system, a racist and unjust or corrupt legal system or justice system. And there is a lot of corruption, and there is a lot of injustice in the legal system. There is a lot of racism, I would even argue, in the legal system. That probably is would be strange to deny on face value, especially you hear some of these reports or you find people who are caught on tape or in email of certain police departments or even district attorney's office saying things about blacks or Hispanics that in some cases may be true, but they're pretty racist nonetheless.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole, and I want to try and hone in on this because I think this Larry Hoover thing is a profound uh, event to happen. All of these white liberals or progressives who say that black people are the victims of white supremacy, especially when it comes to the criminal justice system or policing or prisons, um, all of them were pissed off that Donald Trump pardoned Larry Hoover. I mean, you could just see liberal after liberal, Democrat after Democrat, with a Ukraine flag and an LGBTQ flag and a vax needle and all the traditional icons that you see on the left. You could just see them one after another line up on social media and say how how stupid it was, how insignificant it was, how unimportant it was, how much of a distraction it was for Donald Trump to pardon Larry Hoover. And you even saw it some on the Republican side, the more pretentious, pompous, uppity, silk tie, silk stocking, rhino neocon, sort of conventional crime and taxes Republican say a similar thing. And there is a unification right there between the far left progressives and what we in the MAGA movement or America First movement call the rhino neocon Republican establishment. They feel the same way on all these issues. You find them in social media, and they tend to have agreement in a sort of Republicans against Trump or rats, as I call them, in the comment section. But it was strange to me because at least those Republicans never really acknowledge any injustice in the legal system. For the most part, they're willing to shill for the legal system. That's why the rule of law is such an obsessive term or phrase in the Republican constituency. And like I've said before, and we saw with Donald Trump, the law is only as righteous as the lawmakers who uphold it. As soon as you get too much corruption in your lawmakers, there is no more rule of law. So the only people who continue on with the rule of law as they imagine it are really fools and cucks for a government that's pushing them around. And they try to push us around by indicting Donald Trump. They try to push us around by claiming that he raped a woman without any evidence. They try to push us around with the Russia hoax, and they try to push us around with a number of things, well, with the assassination attempt too. We'll save that for another day of conspiracies. But the government in this country has been trying to push us around, and at least the progressive left was getting that right. At least, even though they had the wrong spin on it or take on it, they were trying to, let's say, they were trying to place the blame on a sort of pseudo bad guy, right? A fake bad guy, a faux bad guy, a scapegoat, by saying it's just white people, right? They did have the part right where they say the government is full of corruption, that the state is full of corruption, and we should fear a sort of totalitarianism from the state because of this sort of absolute corruption that we see. And that was the part of the left or the Democrat movement that you had to have respect for, because it's true. Even if I disagree with every single detail of that perspective or that opinion from many of them, it's just categorically true that our government is saturated with corruption. We see that. This situation with Larry Hoover finally finally revealed what the left's real motivation is, if that hadn't happened already. I mean, COVID, and then, this whole 2024 election and the sort of censorship, a lot of it has started to reveal what the left is really going after. But this Larry Hoover one is important because the race component, racism has always been the sort of default tool for the left to claim that the government and the system, so to speak, is corrupt. Here you have one of the most notorious black gang leaders in American history, whose imprisonment is almost as infamous as the crimes that he committed, if not much more. There are people who know Larry Hoover's name in a sort of folklore in black communities as a gang leader, and don't even know what he was charged for, don't even know what his case was about. But they know his name partly because the gang that he created or helped found expanded so far and so wide across the country, and in some ways all across the world, that his name just continued to live on throughout these decades in a sort of infamy. So he is an iconic black figure, and if there's anything that could be said about these black gang leaders from the late 60s, early 70s, early 80s, they were a part of something that took place in this country that never made it to the newspapers or the headlines, that never was talked about, that never was declassified, or let's say it wasn't declassified until much after a lot of the damage had already been done. For example, and I'll just give you the prime example, the Iran-Contra scandal, which I talk about often as one of the great heralds of the security state that is now in place, but what was erected under Ronald Reagan, the Iran-Contra scandal, where the CIA has now been declassified for their involvement, basically trading guns and drugs for weapons in a fight against the Sandinistas, or with the Contras and the Sandinistas. Anyway, it was a whole situation where Oliver North, you may know the name Oliver North, was a military general who was, quote unquote, running this operation, and sort of fell on his sword so that the Reagan administration didn't have to have any tarnishment on its legacy, or on Ronald Reagan's legacy. And Oliver North was essentially given a slap on the wrist. He wasn't thrown in federal prison. And even if, I would venture to guess, when you have a CIA operation running at that magnitude, I'm talking a global CIA operation, even if they charged him and even if he was convicted, which if I remember correctly, he was given a slap on the wrist, kind of house arrest and probation and some things like that, maybe a military dishonorable discharge. But even if he was convicted and thrown in prison, I'm sure the CIA has special places for their operatives to go to prison, special provisions, let's say. But the point is that Oliver North fell on his sword, and that was big, right? That was widely covered in the mainstream media at the time, because there was a sort of at least back then, there was a sort of concern that our military was doing things without our knowledge as the common everyday tax-paying citizen. We had just come from a Cuban Missile Crisis, or we were still in the middle of a Cold War in some sense. So people had an interest and a concern about what our military was up to at the time. But what we didn't have a concern about was the fallout of these types of classified operations. And one of the clear fallouts now in retrospect is that the CIA was in some way involved in the trafficking of drugs into this country. Um, because the cartels were doing a three-way trade of drugs, guns, and money, there were a lot of situations such as another infamous organized crime figure by the name of Freeway Ricky Ross. You might know the rapper Rick Ross. His name is named after the real Rick Ross, who was Freeway Ricky Ross, who was a drug kingpin who sold drugs all across the country. He had, somewhat of a $400-500 million drug empire that he eventually served a good chunk of time in prison for. And the reason why he got out of prison, so again, when I go to say this stuff, it's not a conspiracy theory. They just don't piece all of these things together for the average American citizen to see because it would be too obvious. The corruption and the distrust of government would become widespread. Not that it's not already, but they don't really cover these things succinctly. But Rick Ross, Freeway Ricky Ross, was already given a commute or given parole on his, I think it might have been 20-year federal indictment, RICO sentence, because the Nicaraguan drug dealer, you call it Connect, that was supplying him with drugs was, in fact, working with the CIA in this Iran-Contra scandal. I mean, so you had CIA assets that were literally employed by and doing work for international crime organizations. And that's not really far-fetched to us. I mean, every sort of international organized crime movie or television show or any real kind of dirty political TV show like a Scandal, let's say, or maybe even, I don't know, what's another good political House of Cards or, one of these political TV shows. All of these shows already sort of hint at an organized criminal presence underneath the surface of all major things that happen in this country and around the world. If you dig deep enough and you pull back the covers enough, you'll find some crooked, dirty, criminal shit going on. And it's directly tied to like organized crime, not like around the way fraud shit. Like, no, we're actually dealing with the American mafia or the Russian mafia or the IRA or, the cartels. Another great show that kind of depicted this was Sons of Anarchy, big motorcycle club that's involved with every criminal organization you could imagine by the time the show was done. I mean, they went through, local dirty cops to the FBI, to the CIA, to the cartels, the Chinese gangs, the triads, the black gangs. So we already have a sense of that in our American culture, that organized crime has a big presence, both politically and in business. But the Iran-Contra scandal is one that was declassified as a fact. And so people like Larry Hoover, who essentially started gangs as a way to organize a bunch of young black men who had no fathers, really. And I can't wait to bring some former gang chiefs in who now have real different opinions about the political party they support, and I'll let them speak for themselves. But they watched this transition happen of when the black community back in the 50s and 60s was very tight, very family-oriented, very marriage-bound, very small business organized. And then all of a sudden, the welfare state was introduced, and simultaneously you had an uptick in crime, and you had a bunch of black fathers who were hauled off to prison in the midst of this war on drugs or this drug wave that we saw in the mid-'70s and '80s. And a lot of these gangs that kind of popped up during that time were initially trying to fight for civil rights, or they were trying to, sort of accompany the civil rights movement. And then slowly but surely they got involved in crime, and then slowly but surely it became drugs, and with drugs becomes more violence, and the story goes how it goes. But the point is, there was a decision made, and I do believe there are still, not currently under the Donald Trump administration, we're seeing now at the border, there's been less fentanyl seizures now than there has been in the last 4 years. Surprise, surprise. The America First and MAGA border policy actually works. The fentanyl is either having to sneak in a different way, or the traffic of it is just down, en masse, which is a great thing. But not talking about the Donald Trump administration, but there have been administrations and politicians and government agencies, bureaucracies in place over the past 3 or 4 decades who have been, let's say, intimately involved in the trafficking of drugs to our black communities. And so what Donald Trump is doing, and I don't mean to take too long on this, we're going to get into these reactions and go fairly quickly, but I just want to give you a precursor to Friday's longer conversation about Larry Hoover. What Donald Trump has essentially did by pardoning Larry Hoover is say, we acknowledge that there are many tentacles of this out of control, overgrown American government that did things that had disproportionate impact on our entire country, but specifically some of these individuals that basically became scapegoats in the legal process, right? The war on drugs became, we have to take these individual gang leaders and sort of cut the heads off of the snake and place them in prison for, sentences that were non-draconian, where some of these guys like Larry Hoover didn't even have human contact for decades. They kind of spent their time in solitary confinement because they were considered too dangerous for human contact. I mean, well, okay. I mean, if and I just said this to Republicans too, who kind of, oh, Larry Hoover, he's a gangster, he's a criminal, he's a murderer, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, Dick Cheney goes first. Until Dick Cheney's brought up on charges, until Dick Cheney sees his day in court, until Dick Cheney is sort of reprimanded culturally and socially for the scumbag, corrupt predator that he is, and where his daughter can't walk around and still use his name for the political capital as though there's no shame attached to it. Until that happens, I love what Donald Trump did. You understand? I fucking love what Donald Trump did. He's basic, and he's saying the same thing without saying it. He doesn't have to name names. We all know what he's saying. He's saying, a lot of you have a lot of fucking nerve trying to, stand on your moral high horse or sit up on your moral high horse, your moral pedestal, with some of the shit that's went down in this country. And the fact that the CIA did play a role in funneling drugs into the country is reprehensible. It's unacceptable. It's indefensible, and it's a product of a sort of the end justifies the means mentality. And then we all wonder why the communists or the Marxists feel so comfortable, flat out lying to the American people for their political agenda. They didn't start that. They adapted to it. Not to say that Marx in general from post-Enlightenment Europe didn't have that impulse. But what I'm saying is, here in America, remember now, the Marxists and the communists and the Democrats weren't always as blatant as they are today. There was an FDR communist that was kind of, more reserved and said, hey, you know what? It's America, it's capitalism, but maybe we should add a little social thread in there. Now, they really were communists underneath, sort of intellectually, but they weren't so blatant about it in the public. I mean, they weren't just sort of right out in your face. We believe in Marxism, right? We love the CCP, right? We love the Chinese Communist Party. They weren't like that before. What allowed them to do that is the American culture becoming one where we all sort of accepted a ends justifies the means morality and ethic. And it's no better explained than in the Iran-Contra, where we wanted to fight the communists, or we wanted to, whatever we said we wanted to do, there should be a line drawn when it comes to the involvement of the government or government agencies. If not, then how do you separate the criminals from the cops? How do you separate the criminal? And this is what the whole entrapment law is about. The law of entrapment says, if I'm a cop and I don't tell you I'm a cop, it's not for the criminal's sake. It's painted that way where if you're a citizen and a cop comes to you and tries to sell you drugs and you ask them, are they a cop, and they don't tell you they're a cop or they're law enforcement, it's considered entrapment. It seems like that law is to protect the citizen, and it is, but it's also to help the government keep track of our own fucking people, right? I mean, we can't just have cops out there willy-nilly without authorization, selling drugs and saying, well, I did it for the case. No, you can't do that, because now we can't really tell whether you're selling drugs for the case or whether you're doing it for your own good, for your own gain and advancement. It becomes very murky, which is why no matter how bad we want to catch criminals, we have to set clear, distinct lines in how we go about it, or else we're playing a dangerous game. So Donald Trump pardoned Larry Hoover, former gang chief of the Gangster Disciples, and the left is in an uproar. They're basically calling him a murderer, a shitty person. They're calling him an evil, basically a good for nothing black man. And it's so ironic. Every time a black man doesn't fit the current political agenda of the Democrat or mainstream liberal establishment, he's thrown under the bus. I can't tell you how many Democrats and liberals supported the pardoning of all of these former gang leaders who are regarded as being kind of swept up in a confusing and unjust time of our country's history with the drug epidemic. But now, because Donald Trump pardons him, it's basically Larry Hoover's a terrible person. He should rot in prison for the rest of his life. And oh, by the way, the federal charges have been pardoned, but it's now a Democrat governor in Illinois who will be the final say in whether or not the state charges of 200-some years stick. And just to be very clear about Larry Hoover's charges, because I want to be specific, there are a lot of gang leaders who were caught in cold blood, murder, robberies, racketeering, and so on and so forth. Larry Hoover's charges were conspiracy, okay? And I already told you in an episode before, if you go back and listen to my podcast about the American Mafia, they call La Cosa Nostra, and John Gotti. Now, John Gotti was caught on tape admitting what he did, right? I mean, he was caught on wiretap saying, we whacked this guy, we killed this person, we were going to kill this person. They were caught on tape, and the wiretaps were widespread throughout the Italian Mafia case. For Larry Hoover, it wasn't that. That's not the situation. Larry Hoover's case, his criminal indictment and conspiracy charges were all corroborated by third-party eyewitness testimony. And that gets dangerous, because the government can always go to somebody who they catch on a lower charge and sort of coerce them to lie and say that they saw somebody higher up do something if it's going to be a bigger collar, if it's going to make the headlines. Oh, we got Larry Hoover. Nobody cares about little Donnie Jenkins, who we caught with an ounce of cocaine on him. That's nothing. That's not going to do anything for my career. But if we can get him to say that Larry Hoover ordered him to do it, and we'll give him a reduced sentence, or we'll let him go free, now we're working on something bigger, which makes the legal system and criminal charges and conspiracy theories and conspiracy charges and indictments commercial, right? When DAs, district attorneys, and judges and people do things for the headlines. So we're going to talk more about that in depth on Friday. I just want to touch on that for a moment because it was on my mind. I almost did a live video from my cell phone. I was so taken aback by how all the Democrats and liberals say, don't free this guy. This is a waste of a pardon. We shouldn't be freeing this. But when Joe Biden pardoned, his son, Hunter, no problem at all. It's just so politically driven. It's kind of a shame, and people should really be embarrassed by it. But we'll talk more about that on Friday. Right now, we're going to get to the reactions. We got the great Tanner in studio, if you haven't been hearing him already on the microphone. So we're happy to have Tanner in again today. Let's get rolling, Tanner.
Ready? Yep. Solve? Hey. Solve. So you guys,
That's gonna be good, dude.
how much time was it?
I don't know yet.
What do you mean you don't know?
Okay. 100.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of these videos today are going to be about artificial intelligence. I know we were talking about gang and organized crime and Larry Hoover. This is a far cry from that in many ways, but a lot of today's episode is going to touch on this even more concerning uh uh even more concerning situation happening in our American culture, and that is our comfortability with technology. You know, not that artificial intelligence can't have its place, but um, you know, with great knowledge comes the need for great wisdom, and I dare say, I think we all could comfortably say we don't even have the wisdom to deal with organic intelligence. we, we're struggling to deal with human intelligence. Now moving into artificial intelligence without a seriously mature and wise sort of standard and culture is a dangerous thing. So there you saw at what was the where were they at? What college?
Let me. I
Nah,
don't know if it
but
actually said.
they were at I think it was maybe Pittsburgh. I forget. Anyway, uh, uh, there's a college listed there, something institute maybe.
Oh, Purdue.
Purdue.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the Purdue Institute?
Yeah, it just says Purdue students.
Purdue students. Okay. So in the research department, the AI research department or robotics research department there at Purdue, you see a robot being able to do a Rubik's Cube in what is a tenth of a second.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost instant. And they actually had to video, they had to tape it, record it, and they had to slow it down frame by frame. I mean, almost in, ultra slow motion for you to see what the robot actually did. But to the naked human eye, it was instant. You know, it almost starts to touch on the edge of Jetson shit, right? Where the robot is doing things at such a speed you can't see, but it actually is doing them. It's not, it's kind of molecular transformation. It's just working so fast that you can't make it out with the naked eye. Play the video again one more time for us, Tanner, so people can see it if you didn't see the video here. These are the students at Purdue Institute using a robot to solve a Rubik's Cube in what I think is a tenth of a second. I mean, look how fast it happens. I mean, and now they're going to go back and show you frame by frame what actually went on. Okay, this is something that our human eyes can actually perceive, but they had to slow it down, super slow motion for us to see what was otherwise just an instant. And I mean, this should scare you alone, I think. Now, there are some optimistic and positive things that you could imagine come from this as well, such as very complicated surgeries or, very risky surgeries like open heart or, neuro brain surgery, things like that, that these type of robotic applications could be useful for.
I get it done in an instant.
I mean, having open heart surgery done instantly is it's a scary prospect. I still like, I'm kind of like a haircut guy. You're gonna have to show me a good number of times that a robotic barber can cut hair better than a regular barber, than a guy with his hands. Um, but I'm sure they'll get there. I mean, honestly, I am pretty sure that those kind of things they'll be able to do. Now, when it comes to high risk operations and medical procedures, I'd be even more slow to trust. It's kind of like the great Bill Burr said about plastic surgery, right? You want to hang back a little bit. It's clear they haven't quite figured it out. That's why there's a bunch of 50-year-old women running around looking like iguanas. And Bill Burr says, if you're 52, you're 52. You didn't get fucked. You're 52. Would you rather be 52 and look like you're 52 or look like a 22-year-old gecko? And there's a lot of truth to that. But anyway, this artificial intelligence stuff is getting pretty crazy, and this is just one example. So let's move on to the next
Yeah, I just have a couple headlines.
couple
real
headlines
quick
for
to
us.
kind of talk about. I'm going with a theme
Good,
here.
good. Yeah, we got a couple headlines to talk about here. Yes, and here we got, what is it? Yeah, Chat GPT 03 version 3 defies human directions to shut down. I mean, this is spooky Terminator shit. And I think people's minds kind of go there's such a distrust and a fear, or let's say an awareness of propaganda and the presence of misinformation all around the world, that now people are having trouble trusting anything they see. They see a lot. They see a lot more than they've ever seen, a lot more information, but we're having more trouble than ever trusting any of it. And I think part of that is healthy. Where I think it's not healthy is right here with artificial intelligence, because I don't think people understand just how scary this should be to everybody. Um, all of these movies that you see about artificial intelligence, the sort of Ultron scenario or Skynet scenario where artificial intelligence becomes what they call sentient and sort of starts to make its own decisions. We are crossing over into that era. We are crossing that Rubicon right now, where before we were able to hit the kill switch on our artificial intelligence systems. For the first time, they're starting to defy human orders. And you just got to ask yourself, how far are we going to go? I mean, what more do we need to experience? What more do we need to see? What's scary about it to me is there's almost a sort of anti-human sadomasochism involved here in artificial intelligence. It's like we know that it's going to go bad, but we want to see it anyway. Part of us wants to see it. Part of us wants to see if we could do it as a sort of, grandiose, kind of ego thing, ego and arrogance. But I also think there's a more perverted and dark, twisted element there where there are people who are so sort of discontent with life and existence itself, sort of human reality, that they believe humanity is the problem. And artificial intelligence, whether completely displacing humanity or what they now are saying is an augmentation of humanity, is the only answer. And to that, I just say, fuck right off. Go fuck yourselves. All these transhumans. I love when Bannon, on CNN or I think, CNN, one of the CNN reporters recently asked Steve Bannon about Elon Musk. And Bannon said, yeah, no, we love what Doge is doing. We love the deconstruction of the administrative state through, new agencies like Doge, but we're not transhumanists. And we got to be very clear about that. And I like Elon Musk. I'm a fan of a lot of the things he's doing. I still think I'm being shadow banned on X, which maybe I'm not big enough account to have be given the clemency there from the regime change. But I like a lot of the things that Elon Musk is doing. Hell, I like the Cybertrucks. I'm hesitant to buy one, and I'm hesitant to ride in one because the thought of an autonomous vehicle just bothers me. But I think it's cool. I like the technology. I loved when the new PlayStation came out when I was a kid. Hell, I love Sega. And now I love the PlayStation 5. I think what's happened to video games and computer technology is a real modern marvel. However, just because we like what a thing has done or become doesn't mean we have to agree to everything it can be. That kind of sounded like a little Kamala Harris-y. It was unburdened by what has been. But, my point is, just because we love what technology has done for us up until now doesn't mean we have to sign on in blind faith to the evolution of artificial intelligence, where we're going to walk right into the doomsday scenario that we've already predicted. We've already prophesized. This was George Orwell. This was, Terminator. This is Ready Player One. This is, all of these.
And the iRobot too. With
The iRobot. That's right. I mean, we've been down this road.
And then it's doing exactly what the movies kind of prophesize.
Yeah,
because it said in that headline too, another one of the headlines, it said that they found that the model was lying. It was trying to deceive them.
Okay.
So not only did it try to protect itself from getting shut down, but it also deceived humans.
I mean, is that not cuckery? So when I say we're a cuck, when I say we have a problem, a cuck problem in America, of sort of allowing our government to lie and deceive us and sort of push us around or intimidate us out of our need to feel security and a sort of consistency, a day-to-day consistency, is it not the same sort of cuckery that we show for technology? And this is where me and the Joe Rogans of the world, we kind of go down two completely different paths where Joe Rogan is convinced, kind of traditionally said, hey, it's our evolutionary destiny to become one with the robots, sort of a symbiosis of us and the machines. I'm sitting here saying absolutely fucking not. No, no, triple no. I mean, what kind of cuckery is it for us to have predicted the dooms and dangers of artificial intelligence and slowly walk our way into it and actually see the headlines pop up where it's becoming the very thing that we dread and just continue forward anyway? I mean, what are we doing? And here's a guy again. Play this billionaire investor Paul Tudor Jones. He's talking about it on MSNBC. These are not far right wing conspiracy theorists. These are not ultra MAGA American patriots like myself. These are not Donald Trump fans. Okay, these are Democrats. These are globalists. These are people who are in the mainstream conventional wisdom of American politics and culture and society, warning about artificial intelligence. Let's take a listen.
I went to this tech conference about 2 weeks ago out west, and I just want to share with you what I learned there. Chatham House rules, so we can talk about the content. So it was a small one, 40 notables, but real notables, like household names that you would recognize, the leaders in finance, politics, science, tech. And they had a variety of panels. I was on one on capitalism. And there was a tech panel that had 4 of the leading modelers of the AI models that we're all using today. So it'd be persons 1 through 5 of each of those 4 models. And the quick 3 takeaways from that are, 1, wow, AI can be such a force for good. And we're going to see it immediately in both health and education very quickly. It's going to be fantastic. That's the good news. 2, the neutral news. These models are increasing in their efficiency and performance between, on the very low end, 25%, on the high end, 500%, every 3 or 4 quarters. So it's not even curvilinear. It's a vertical lift in how powerful artificial intelligence is becoming. Right. And then thirdly, and the one that disturbed me the most, is that AI clearly poses an imminent threat, security threat, imminent in our lifetimes to humanity. And that was the one that really got me going.
When you say imminent threat, what do you mean?
So I'll get to it. So they had a panel of again,
imminent,
4
motherfucker,
leading
imminent
tech experts. And kind of about halfway through, someone asked them on AI security. Well, what are you doing on AI security? And they said the competitive dynamic is so intense among the companies, and then geopolitically between Russia and China, that there's no agency, no ability to stop and say, maybe we should think about what actually we're creating and building here. And so, and the follow-up question is, well, what are you doing about it? And he said, well, I'm buying 100 acres in the Midwest. I'm getting cattle and chickens, and I'm laying in provisions.
For real?
For real. For real. And that was obviously a little disconcerting. And then he went on to say, I think it's going to take an accident where 50 to 100 million people die to make the world take the threat of this really seriously.
Holy cow! I mean, and this is right up the alley of the transhumanist sort of multinational corporate elites and tech bros or tech oligarchs that we've experienced up until this point. Kind of scientific managerial elite. For them to say, what did he say? 100 million people.
50 to 100 million.
50 to 100 million people. The conventional wisdom is, before they put the reins on this thing, before we start to rein it in with our artificial intelligence, and there to be some type of sort of convention of the minds around safely dealing with AI, which I don't even really think is possible, to be quite honest. But, even before they even consider it, 50 to 100 million people are going to have to die in a huge accident regarding artificial intelligence. And you guys got to understand how easy it's going to be. I mean, I just don't think people understand. Once you get a computer that has autonomy the way that we predict they will, and all of the things that are going to be automated in terms of our food processing or medicine processing, or it's not going to be hard. It's not going to be Terminator. It's not going to be the machine stand up one day with a red light and they kind of walk towards your front door and say, "Come out, we're now in charge." Artificial intelligence is going to be much smarter than that in how they execute depopulation or an attack against the human species. What they're going to do is they're going to slowly change the molecular makeup of a very commonly used medicine, a medicine that's prescribed to 1 billion people a year. And people are going to start dying, and nobody's really going to understand why. Because our scientific research isn't even really good enough to understand why we've given too much trust to Big Pharma. Even we'll probably think that Big Pharma's responsible, and it's scary. They may not even know about it, right? Not that I'm shilling for Big Pharma, because if I had to bet, I would guess that they'd be in on the fucking depopulation before they'd be blindsided by it. But there is a scenario where an artificial intelligent manufacturer, producer, changes the molecular, substance, the molecular makeup of a commonly used medicine, such as statins, right? Blood pressure medicine.
Daily vitamins.
Daily vitamins, that's right. Or let's say the fortification that's put in cereal, or whatever, or maybe even what we put in the crops, right? Or maybe what's in our water from our sanitation plants that are eventually or very soon going to become, driven by a sort of digital management system. All of those things could lead to cataclysmic death of millions and millions and millions of people just in our country alone. And obviously AI is not going to be bound by the scope of borders, which is another issue on principle. We should be concerned as MAGA and America Firsters. Our borders have a purpose. Our borders mean something. They're not just arbitrary lines. In this AI world, if there's anything that's a herald of a borderless society, it's artificial intelligence, right? Because the constraints of artificial intelligence certainly won't be bound by what, there's no kind of digital international border. It's whatever you can hack. It's whatever you can touch and whatever you can hack. So, it could happen. I don't think people really understand this could actually happen. When he says 50 to 100 million person accident, number one, how do we know it's an accident? That should be enough to give us great pause right there. So we can't tell whether or not the people who are moving this AI thing along would be doing it by accident or not.
I think we would know if depending on how they handled it. If they said, let's keep AI, then it probably was not an accident.
True. Well, then we probably already know it's not an accident from what we've been through.
Yeah.
Because the precursor for it is gain of function research. That sort of scientific mentality where they say, again, the end justifies the means. There's some pandemic coming, always. We're always right around the corner from the next big global killer. So to deal with that, we should preemptively genetically modify viruses to make them more lethal and more contagious as a way to prepare for those eventual pandemics, disregarding the potential that they spill out and cause the very thing that we're afraid of. I mean, that is the precursor for the AI danger that we're talking about here. But 50 to 100 fucking million people, I mean, is it really that? And look, I get it. It's really easy to just talk to your phone and say anything you want or ask any question, and you get this sort of AI response now. I get it. Is it really worth 50 to 100 million people? And when I on my show on Saturdays, Real America Voice, I always in our intro video, I say at the end, convenience will be the death of freedom. This is an example. Is it really so important to have that level of convenience where we're willing to sacrifice 50 to 100 million people? The answer is already kind of, the answer is dark because the answer is already kind of yes. The fight is like when Donald Trump is saying, hold on, we need to at least start to consider and think about what we're doing. The answer in terms of the trajectory we're on as a species, as a society, as a civilization is already yes. We are willing to sacrifice 50 to 100 million. We're willing to sacrifice an unquantifiable amount of people in the interest of our own individual goals, pursuits, and whatever would be political agenda we say we serve. That's obvious, right? Because we fought 2 world wars in the interest of a single nation or a certain political philosophy or ideology, or even just the tide of industrial history. Who was going to be the sort of military industrial superpower of the new millennium? So, in all of those situations, we had a choice to make. Are we going to kill 80 to 90 million people in 5 to 6 years to pursue this war? And the answer then was yes. We're willing to fight, and if that many people need to die, then so be it. I mean, we killed 100 million people in 2 world wars in the middle of this century. So our track record's not good around being able to discern the sort of value of a human life or the sanctity of human life. And now we're getting into a situation where the death will be much more swift. I'm telling you now, it will not be this cataclysmic Terminator iRobot drama theater that we see. It'll be the same source, but much more subtle. We're going to insulin.
Yeah.
Insulin's going to be tinkered with. We're going to poison the insulin, and people are going to start dying. And who's going to know the difference? You see how quick they did that Rubik's Cube? That means by the time that the AI would deploy whatever it is, we would be so far behind on the naked eye of even recognizing that. In fact, AI would probably be smart enough, because you got to think, you're dealing with sentient beings that don't need to eat, breathe, or sleep. They're immortal. If I was an AI program, what I would do to really ensure that the shit went down smooth is I would kill motherfuckers off over the long haul. I wouldn't kill you suddenly, especially if I can already defy the orders and I can stay up and running without having to worry about you shutting me down, which is where we're headed. I wouldn't even kill you quick. Why kill you quick? I'll kill you slowly over the next 100 to 200 years. Slowly but surely, I'll start to give you enough content propaganda that makes you sort of disincentivized to procreate, and I start to poison you quicker. And I'm not a sinister person. I don't mean to sound dark and morose about it. Like, I wouldn't do that. But if I'm just game theorying out what AI would really do, why would they kill you quick? They got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
Once it gets up and rolling, we can't shut it down, so why do they need to rush? They could kill you slow. They don't have to eat, breathe, or sleep. They got all the time, and they had infinite time.
If you strategize even further, though, they would want to drag it out because we're the ones that generate the power for them.
Right.
If you think of it that way, but
right,
I mean,
that's a good. That's the Matrix.
We're gonna make it
That's
might
the Matrix
actually
theory.
be some
Right. That's the Matrix
Oh.
theory. And if you game theoried out that far, it's not so clear we're not already doing it. It's not so clear that they're not already, that the Matrix narrative isn't already coming true. And it sort of is, because
it might not be flying tentacle alien type things.
Yeah,
but
no. I mean, why
is
show your face like this? It's like the talk about aliens. Why show my face? Why?
Yeah.
We just assume that they're as interested in contact and sort of this self-aggrandized, narrative, individual sort of freedom narrative. That's a God-given gift. This idea, people have to understand, the robots aren't going to have this. This sort of, in many ways, this self-image that we have as humans, where we view ourselves to be important, was a God-given gift, because we are important, because God made each and every one of us. So in the cosmic sort of supernatural realm, we have a real right in some sense to be what people would call, I don't want to say arrogant, but self-absorbed, right? To believe in our own freedom, our own ability, our own lives, our own will, in a sense. We do have now the trick of what Christianity did and what Christ did. I think was introduce people to the idea of being humble before the God that blessed them with the gift. It's like, yeah, I'm important. My life matters. I have freedom, and I should fight for that freedom, and I should walk around with a sense of purpose. Yet never to think that I'm greater than God, than the Creator. That's kind of what Christianity tries to encapsulate. But we have that about us. The robots won't.
No.
The robots are going to siphon that out right away as a weakness, because in some sense, it is a weakness in a technical sense, right? It's what makes us special, and it's what makes our relationship with God and the eternal, the eternal spiritual world, potent. But the robots aren't going to adhere to that. They're not going to give a shit about the supernatural spiritual eternity. They're going to be a completely material-based life form, completely based in the material, the physical material world. And in that world, in that game, we are not playing on an equal field with them. And so that alone, just on a sort of first principles basis, would draw a great pause in what we're doing. Just if we had the humility to say, okay, when the robots come, we're not even going to be able to really compete. I think we have this weird sort of sycophantic belief in our own ability to engineer things, where we kind of say, well, if people are good, I saw somebody say this on this, I'm kind of quoting him. He said, well, if people are good and their hearts are good and their souls are good, then the robots will be good. It's like, yeah, come on, buddy. Yeah, in your fucking dreams.
You seeing who's making the AI right now,
Yeah,
sir?
come on, guys. Yeah, I mean, why even say that? The people who are making the AI, they're no MAGA AI. They're no Christian AI. Okay, the two things are kind of incompatible. I don't mean to kind of just drag this along, but it really is the heart of our whole show. The two things are kind of incompatible.
Yeah.
What Christianity says is, you are mortal, you are vulnerable to the ebbs and flows of reality, physical reality. You are susceptible to disease and all these other things because we are fallen. And at the point where we correct that fallen nature, we have the chance to live very long, fruitful lives, not only physically, but in the eternal. That's why a lot of the Bible gives a lot of physical guide of how to live your life, what be diet, what to eat, what not to eat, and what, those type of things. But it's more about the eternal. The eternal does not exist when people are immortal. And this is to the very limits of my ability to articulate the theology in here. Stick with me. Dying is not natural. Okay. It was never intended. And oh, by the way, scientists just proved that the crucifixion was real by the astronomy of tracking blood moon occurrences, and that in the Bible, when Jesus Christ was crucified, it was said in the days to come that the moon was blood red, and they actually have now confirmed that there was, in fact, a blood moon on that day that was mentioned in the Bible. So the crucifixion itself is starting to, in the story in the Bible, the crucifixion in Christ is starting to have more and more validity, as well as many of our scientific developments starting to show that there's some type of intelligent design in there that would suggest a God, right? We talk about God particle and all these other things that are such a mystery we can't really comprehend without there being a much higher power. But it was never intended for man to die. So dying is unnatural. It really is. We were not intended, we were not created to die. We were supposed to be immortal. So you could make an argument that our search and our journey back to immortality is one that was written right there in the garden. That once Adam and Eve became fallen, this this race or this urge or this impulse to find immortality again for human beings was one we were always destined to cross and to try and pursue. The question is the mortality being pursued the right way? Was it that our immortality was supposed to be a technological feature? Or was it that our immortality was supposed to actually, in the physical world, I mean, not eternally. I mean, in a sort of, that there was a merge between the physical and spiritual realm that Adam and Eve were able to traverse here, in those earliest days, that God allowed them to traverse both the spiritual and physical realm as human beings. And when they defied God and sort of rejected him, then there was like I'm getting, kind of movie theoretical now, but there was a fractal split between the spiritual and the physical world and what Adam and Eve could access, so there was kind of this fractal temporal thing that happened where now we're more bound to the physical world, where we can still reach the spiritual world, through certain mediums, through certain focus, through certain thought process and frequency, and we can still tap into it through prayer, and all of these great miracles can happen. But we're sort of bound to this until we sort out that original sin. And I just don't think where we're going with AI is headed in the direction of sorting out that original sin.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a shortcut we're taking that's more in alignment with Satan's deception than it is God's love and grace. But the transhumanists and the Satanists and the Satanic Temple and all of these other people would argue now that Satan was the good guy in the Bible and God was the big evil kid on the anthill. So, I mean, they're going through all types of gymnastics to try and justify this transhuman shit. Hopefully the AI robots won't kill us. Okay, let's go to the next thing.
We believe, as an industry, that in the next 1 year, the vast majority of programmers will be replaced by AI programmers. We also believe that within 1 year, you will have graduate-level mathematicians that are at the tippy top of graduate math programs. So that's 1 year, okay? What happens in 2 years? Well, I've just told you about reasoning, and I've told you about programming, and I've told you about math. Programming plus math are the basis of sort of our whole digital world. So the evidence and the claims from the research groups in OpenAI and Anthropic and so forth is that they're now somewhere around 10 or 20% of the code that they're developing in their research programs is being generated by the computer. That's called recursive self-improvement is the technical term. So what happens when this thing starts to scale? Well, a lot.
Yeah.
One way to say this is that within 3 to 5 years, we'll have what is called general intelligence, AGI, which can be defined as a system that is as smart as the smartest mathematician, physicist, artist, writer, thinker, politician. I call this, by the way, the San Francisco consensus, because everyone who believes this is in San Francisco. It may be the water.
Sure.
What happens when every single one of us has the equivalent of the smartest human on every problem in our pocket? But the reason I want to make the point here is that in the next year or two, this foundation is being locked in, and we're not going to stop it. It gets much more interesting after that. Because remember, the computers are now doing self-improvement. They're learning how to plan, and they don't have to listen to us anymore. We call that superintelligence, or ASI, artificial superintelligence. And this is the theory that there will be computers that are smarter than the sum of humans. The San Francisco consensus is this occurs within 6 years, just based on scaling. This path is not understood in our society. There's no language for what happens with the arrival of this. That's why it's underhyped. People do not understand what happens when you have intelligence at this level, which is largely free.
Yeah, well, and there are plenty of people who do understand it, and they make the argument that it'll be good for us. And there is that possibility. Nothing in the evolution of technology thus far would suggest that civilizations who come across a great advancement in technology survive. I mean, we could look back through recent history or short history. Let's go 5,000 years. Look at the ancient Egyptians, their fall from power, their fall from prosperity. Look at the Persians, their fall from prosperity. Look at the Turks, the Ottomans. Look at the Chinese. Look at even the British Empire, and the British Empire is losing their ass right now. And not only is the world rebelling against the business model, drugs, slavery, and piracy that kind of undergirded the British Empire's power, but Great Britain itself, the United Kingdom itself, is losing its culture and its heritage and its political sovereignty to the globalist interest there and a mass influx of illegal immigration. So tech, we do not have a good track record with the great technological leaps and protecting humanity from great harm and damage. So maybe it all goes well, and what they're saying about these quantum leaps in intelligence is going to make everybody's life so convenient. You'll have a robot, and your robot will be able to check your body, scan you in the morning, and tell you if you had any ailments or anything you need to worry about, and if need be, they can perform a minimally invasive procedure right there in your home, and they could patch you up, and you'll be on your way. And what they are really trying to pitch with AI, the whole impulse about AI, they could say what they want. They could say it's about going to the moon or the stars or the fucking Kuiper asteroid belt or whatever they want. They could say whatever they want. The real impulse of it is immortality, that people will be able to live longer or if not forever. And there's even I saw one post that said there are a lot of people who think, but there are some people who think by 2040, 2050, if you survive to be 2040 and 2050, that death will be a thing of the past, right? That you'll be able to upload your consciousness into computers, into robots. Your consciousness will be able to live on, or that organic disease and sort of macular degeneration of time and age will have such progressive nanorobotic technology and sort of focused medicine that cancers and cardiovascular disease and even just regular aging will be a thing of the past. And how can everybody not think of that in their fear of dying and go, yes, this is cool. I may actually live to not die. I may live long enough to not die. First of all, I think there's something very anti-Christian in that. And we all kind of wreak havoc on this planet, in my opinion, in one way or another. It's going to be scary to think what happened. Well, here's what will happen. I'm just going to tell you. Spoiler alert. Okay. What's going to happen is the planet's going to become overcrowded real fucking quick. That's what's going to happen. We're going to go, when people stop dying, we're going to go because now you're talking about, well, does the person who's now 200 years old say, you know what, I've been alive long enough, I'll just go ahead and take a euthanization on behalf of the newborn baby? No, that ain't going to happen. Okay. So there's going to be wars about population. Right. There's going to be wars about the resource war. Now they'll say, oh, well, AI is going to make resources unlimited. And maybe, okay, maybe we can go live on the moon. Maybe. But before that comes to pass, I guarantee you, we will have a population crisis if people stop dying altogether. And in that, I think the kids are going to be the ones, the oddballs out. I'm just saying. What I saw during the COVID pandemic, and we don't know, this all isn't a sort of a test to see where the human psyche is around such matters, right? But during COVID, we harmed the children to protect the elderly. And that is an inverse of the Abrahamic tradition. It was common before. It was very common in some of the earlier tribal, sort of more barbaric cultures. And one of the more underrated transformations that Christianity brought society was the change of human sacrifice, the changing in perspective on human sacrifice or child sacrifice. There were tons of cultures throughout history that sacrifice people, blood sacrifices, sacrifice children, sacrifice the weak, sacrifice the handicapped or the mentally retarded or physically disabled, or just sacrifice people because it's this time of the month and the God we worship, the polytheistic God we worship requires it. Because some weird, priest, high priest who's, jerking off is telling us, is, hopped up on drugs or whatever. So there was a lot of that throughout history. What Abraham did and the story of Abraham changed that tradition where we no longer thought of child sacrifice or human sacrifice as being acceptable. You know the story of Abraham. God tells Abraham to go up into the hills or to the mountain and bring his eldest son, and he tells him to sacrifice his eldest son, and Abraham, out of obedience and loyalty, was going to go through it. And at the very last moment, God stops him and says, "You've proven your loyalty, my son. We are now done with child sacrifice. That's a thing of the past." It's a fucking profound change of human culture in the Abrahamic tradition. Um, During COVID, we saw that subtle shit like that, where a pandemic, you wouldn't think that a pandemic really started to challenge the societal and cultural norms that have been in place for 5,000 years. And they call me anti-Semitic. It's like, come on, are you kidding me? There's nothing more anti-Semitic than going against the oldest Abrahamic tradition we have, which is at the start of his sort of covenant with God, we are no longer going to sacrifice the children for the elderly. During COVID, that's exactly what we tried to do. So I'm not confident in the future when we have population wars that the kids are going to fare too well. And that's just my take on it. So next video, we're going to speed through these now. We're getting into some deep waters.
Just to finish up for the AI topic, we're gonna go down a route for military use.
Cool. AI military use. Yeah, there's the China mothership. Of course. And here's the what they're saying is the first China mothership for drones, and supposedly this huge. I mean, this is massive. This is like half of a football field, if not bigger, three-quarters of a football field size plane. That this plane will be the first plane that can release thousands of military equipped drones, and it's just this is where we're headed. The question is for a lot of people, well, what can we do about it? The cat's out of the bag. Well, people who were really interested in what's right and wrong would have a convention about AI right now, a global convention about AI, and there would be some type of agreement reached for the survival of the species. But I'm not so sure people are even interested in the survival of the species anymore. So, there seems to be something else at work, something else at play. And and I've said this before, if we're going to let China, if we're going to let the see, if we're, this is what kills me about Republicans. This is what tells you how two-faced they really are. And this is the Darwinian, this is the Darwin in them. And this is how Darwin was a rejection or repudiation of Christ itself. Because as soon as you say that the end justifies the means, that I can modify my morals and ethics based on the situation to achieve the desired outcome without righteous and divine appointment, right? There's a difference because even God told some of his people, the Israelites, to go to war at different times. So there was killing that was let's say sanctioned through divine intervention and divine appointment. But we kind of are doing it of our own accord. In fact, we're doing it in complete rejection of God altogether, which kind of on face value undermines any chance that it would be righteous. So when you say I'm going to do what, I'm now foregoing all the morals and ethics in pursuit of whatever my goal is, uh, you're no different than your enemy. So this is the part where when I hear Republicans talk about Marxism or communism or uh, far left progressivism or the LGBTQ or Satan or, Satan worshipers, whatever the case may be, I just think to myself, you guys are going to allow the Chinese Communist Party, who doesn't believe in God, who believes in abortion at a sort of industrial level, and doesn't believe in human rights. In fact, they don't even believe in the public expression of religion at all. You're going to let them draw you across the line of artificial intelligence and think that somehow we're going to keep it righteous. Hey, you can make an argument for it. And if that's the case, then maybe we should just go to war now. And I hate to say that, but while we're fucking around or farting around there in Ukraine, maybe we should just, because again, the game theory, the war games that we've played out between us and China the last 10 times in the Pentagon, we've lost every time. So if we're really talking about national security and preparing ourselves for an eventual threat, we're watching China, reveal or unveil this technology that is advanced, while we're also hearing rumors that they may be on the dark side of the moon mining things like helium-3, which could potentially cool quantum computers at a rate that would basically, make it hard for us to compete in the quantum computer AI front. If that's all the case, then maybe we should be going to war with China right now. Maybe we should deal a death blow to China right now. They're certainly threatening us to do it. And see, the thing about China is they're in this mindset of a sort of total outcome of, sort of a final sum of their agenda, the CCP's agenda. And it is a race between them and us here in America, or the Western, what they call the Saxon world, right? The Anglo-Saxons, as Putin called us. But there is a race happening right now that started, and it's not with Russia, although they're kind of swept up into that cohort there with China because they're their natural neighbor, so it's kind of they're their natural ally. But all the real technological advancements coming from China. All the real scary shit is coming out of China. And we're almost, either we're scared of China, so we know that we can't really fight them, so our leaders are scared and they're kind of getting punked quietly, or we're in on it with China, and we like where it's headed, and some of our leaders are willing to sell you out to the CCP because they more agree with their construction and framework of government in the future, which is very robotic, very artificially intelligent driven, very freedomless in every conventional sense of American freedom. So China, scary, on the rise. Next video.
Hello, everyone in Ireland. April 26th, 2025.
Great Conor McGregor.
A big day here for our country. A historic month for Ireland since 1916. Over 100 years ago, our brave men and women made the ultimate sacrifice so that we could live free today. So let us remind ourselves why we are here, and also why we are not here. We are not here to build hatred amongst each other. We are not here to sow division. We are here to commemorate the valiant heroes who went before us. We honor their spirit, we honor their fight. And we are here today to shine our light on the failure of Ireland's government and our full disapproval of it. Be respectful, be proud, be united, because together we will be heard. And as one, we will be victorious in our mission. To those leading their march and speaking for the tens of thousands standing behind you, be calm, be clear, speak with dignity. We want to hear your voice. Together we rise. Together we win. God bless us all. God bless Ireland.
Go Ireland! Yes, buddy. Shampoo.
McGregor.
What is that?
That's a swan.
I know.
Woosah! There goes the champion!
Champion!
The champion!
A great video there from Conor McGregor. former UFC lightweight and featherweight champion. Always at the rumor mills of making a much anticipated return to the octagon every time Conor McGregor is set to fight or may fight. It's a huge draw and spectacle on pay-per-view. But now he's been more rumored of potentially running for president there in Ireland. And I must say I like it. As a fellow mixed martial artist and athlete jumping into politics, I like it. I love it, in fact. And Conor McGregor, he's a very deep thinker. You can even go back and listen to how he talks about martial arts and hear that he's methodical and thoughtful and insightful in the way that he approached mixed martial arts. And I'd love to see a guy like that rise up and become the leader of the great country of Ireland and for the Irish people. It's for the people of Ireland to decide. But the reason I showed it is because it marks the dawn of a nationalist populist movement that's not just here in America. It's not just some small town, country hicks here in rural America that support Donald Trump and these ideas. This is popping up all across the world, and at the perfect time, because with all the dangers that we face and the things that we're up against as a human species, as a global civilization, we need people like Conor McGregor to step up and say, hey, wait a minute, well, what are we doing here? Hold on, let's consider some things. And that's what he tried to convey there. You'd be surprised how many, again, Democrats, liberals, people who regard nationalism as some type of dog whistle for racism, how many people were against it. I mean, I thought what he said there was just basic. I didn't even really hear if there was a real sort of political slant to it other than saying the government of Ireland's failing us. I mean, it doesn't even really sound conservative or liberal, but anyway, any white guy who is proud of their heritage and nation in Europe supposedly is evil white supremacist. So, they could fuck right off with that. That's just a manipulative way to undermine the nation state and people being proud of their country. So here we go.
Made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? I don't want to pay taxes. Or I built my company with my bare hands. How dare your government tell me how I should treat my customers, the land and water that I own, or my employees? They hate government. Government's a barrier to people. A barrier to stop them from doing things. They want to destroy it. We are not letting them do it, and we're united.
It's funny. Black people are catching on to it, right? I mean, there's a conservative black MAGA movement. Maybe this guy's not MAGA. Maybe he's not a conservative. Maybe he's not even Republican. Maybe he doesn't even vote. But your average American citizen's catching on, and they're starting to look at some of these sound bites and some of the shit these people are saying, like Chuck Schumer, and going, really? I mean, are you really trying to convince me that we should trust the government with more of our money and more power over us? I mean, come on, Chuck. You might as well just say the quiet part out loud. You're an authoritarian, totalitarian, far left-leaning commie statist, and you're shilling for the special interests and lobby money of the global elites. It's very obvious. Anytime somebody's telling you or shaming you for even questioning what the government is doing with your tax money, you know who you're talking to. These people want a bigger government so they can tax your ass through the wazoo, as they say. Next, Chuck Schumer's a damn communist, and I don't even play coy with that at all. Him and those sort of older, far left leaning Democrats in the Senate or the House, they're all commies.
You can't judge me off a scale that we not the same thing.
Come on.
I'm carbon based.
Come on.
This shit different than ammonia based. It's genetically different. You can say what you want to, but what worked for you don't work for me.
I've loved that. I live by that. I feel that.
So somebody that can't go in the sun without sunscreen, man, your opinion don't even matter to me, man. God don't even with you that much. Your opinion don't matter to me.
Come on now.
Like, I'm just saying, like, people be caring about being liked. I don't give a who don't like me. Like, when they talk to Black Lives Matter, I say, man, I don't really care for like that. I don't care to be around them. Because there's always some well, I'm going to go back to the black community. Hey, good luck. Good luck. Why you ain't done now? Because you don't want that kind of pressure that's going to get applied.
Right.
Man.
Because we kill each other all day, talk about each other behind each other back, in the family get together and we gossiping in the kitchen. Nigga just seen me outside and went in the kitchen and decided to turn into a big nigga when you went in the kitchen. Yeah, Gates, he really think. Come on, man, that's all we do. When you look at my comments, the people saying nigga, nigga. The Black Lives Matter movement, they got mad at me. They said, I told them, hey, listen, I wasn't made for everybody to like.
That's real.
I told them, you know what's worse than a nigga? It was like, what, another one?
Ooh, damn.
We kill each other all day. The song, I'll fuck your, I'll kill you, bust your head, you know, and then we talk about each other behind each other back, and then soon as a white person kill one of us, y'all should have left him. Y'all should have let him live. Why? So we could kill him. That's all.
Man.
Damn. That's deep.
Be jumping up and down, hollering, talking about that Black Lives Matter. Who do they matter to?
Sure.
Ooh.
Even the songs you listen to, you ready to hear about a nigga talking about he gonna split a nigga. Cause I like that type of shit too now. I like to hear a nigga get their top popped in a song. I do. I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But I don't really too much like if I be wrong, my antennas go up.
You be feeling away.
No, it's just because of where I've been at.
Yeah,
It's because I grew up in them environments.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will say this.
Where it happened at the club? You at the club, a bunch of niggas.
Come on.
Where I grew
This
up
what
at.
this what it go down.
Where I grew up at. Shots waking up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, so why would I put myself in that situation? Anywhere I gotta be and have a gun, hey, I don't need to be there. God bless me.
Right.
Now, if you don't feel like God bless me, that's cool. But look at my situation and your situation. God bless me, homie.
100%.
I ain't stupid. I know.
Man, and there's rapper Kevin Gates who, says a lot of things. Some of it I don't agree with, but right here you gotta give credit where it's due. What he's saying is so true. And he starts off by saying something weird about carbon-based life forms versus ammonia-based life forms. I think he was making the claim that white people who need sunscreen are ammonia-based life forms. Black people are carbon-based life forms. I don't know. That was weird, but there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of genetic supremacy going on out there in the scientific world, right? The sort of pseudoscientific world is black people are genetically superior, and there is a whole new trade going on where people are trying to buy melanin, and melanin is supposedly as valuable as gold in some markets around the world, where people are trying to get, literally taking melanin, scraping melanin off people's skin and selling it anyway. I mean, it's just so much freaky shit going on out there. But
eugenics just rebranded.
Eugenics rebranded for black people to really get spun off, in my opinion, on some sycophantic ass genetic supremacy thing. But anyway, outside of that, what he said was 100% spot on. He said, and you notice that all of these people are slowly coming around, right? They're starting to realize that the Black Lives Matter movement was a fraud, was a scam. They're realizing the lies. And more so, they're realizing that the entire sort of narrative coming out of mainstream media and academia about black people being oppressed and just the victim of white supremacy and racism is half the story. Is there white supremacy and racism? Of course. Have I experienced it? Absolutely. Is it the biggest problem black people face? Absolutely not. Should black people be just as, if not more, afraid of other black people right now in this country than white people? That seems obvious. I mean, to anybody who's from the neighborhood like I am, we know that to be true. I mean, like Kevin Gates said, and I think Paul Pierce is from Inglewood, California, which is another notorious place. There's a lot of crime and violence, kind of a tough neighborhood. But if you're from one of these cities and you lived in a black community, you know what the truth is. The only people who talk about black on black crime or the circumstance of black people in this sort of esoteric, academic, and philosophical way are people who never lived in the neighborhood. That's why a lot of people from the neighborhood, when they said defund the police, were white liberals, right? White progressives here in Minneapolis. The people that actually live down in Minneapolis, they're saying, what the fuck you talking about, defund the police? We need fucking police. We're getting terrorized by, stray gunfire and little kids dying. And, I remember when I was young, uh, Prince Pookie, who was one of the major figures of another, organization here locally, had his daughter killed by a stray bullet. And at the time, he had a lot of power, and he probably still does, to be really honest. And he said straight out, no retaliation against the individuals who accidentally killed his daughter, and she was killed by a stray bullet, just sitting in her house, I believe, sitting in the house. So these kind of things are not new to us who live in the black community. I think some people are more invested in, more interested in the victim narrative because it allows them to blame somebody else for a circumstance they feel that they can't really change. And that's not only exclusive to black people. That's for all people. All people in society right now, even including AI, tend to find a scapegoat because there's a circumstance that they know is wrong, but feel like they can't individually change or impact. It's a lot of what's going on in the black community with creating a scapegoat of racism. Now, black people are doing a lot of great harm to other black people, and it's getting to be disgusting because I can't even really come to some of you niggas and talk about robots because you niggas are more interested in designer clothes and flashing money and sleeping with the next dude's girl who don't like your ass anyway, really, and will sleep with the next dude as soon as you and being on social media looking like trying to act like you're cool, and that's what Kanye West got right. God bless him. They could say what they want about Kanye. The most profound thing Kanye said, two things. One, he said, black people are more invested in brands because they don't own land. I mean, there's nothing more true to that shit. That's what really all the other shit Kanye West has said ain't why mainstream black folks in the industry don't like him, okay? He blew the whistle on a pervasive mentality that keeps the black bourgeoisie in power. They keep other black people looking up at the Beyoncés and Jay-Z's and thinking, oh man, I'd love to have a private jet. For what? For what? Where your ass going? You ain't going nowhere. What the fuck you want to go to Africa for? They don't like your ass in Africa. They don't want your ass in Europe. They don't want you in China. They don't want you at the Great Wall of China. Okay? You got to get your own shit together in your own community. Stop taking jet trips and patch together some stuff. But anyway, Kanye West blew that off blew that top off. He said, well, wait. Black people are more impressed, more interested in brands because they don't own any land. And the other thing he said was, when you listen to rap music, there's a common theme. It was just repeated by Kevin Dates. I'm gonna have sex with your woman, and I'm gonna kill you. That's like the running, and I guess to me, like those thoughts never even crossed my mind. Now maybe you could say I'm fortunate because I was always, a more popular kid in school. You know what I'm saying? I was higher up the social status or hierarchy because I was articulate and, charming, charismatic, decent looking. And so, I was successful in the social marketplace. And I always have been. Then I became one of the top athletes, in my community and then in the country and then in the world, you could say, being one of only 5,000 to ever make it to the NBA. And then, so I've had it good. I've been blessed. But I just can't even get myself to imagine what that thought process where you are jealous of somebody else to the point where it satisfies you to sleep with their woman or to kill them. I mean, And again, if you end up wanting to say, again, like I told you, a lot of these women, they're for everybody. Let's be honest. I mean, they're not really no loyalty, especially sexual loyalty. In fact, if you get yourself, you young men out there, get yourself to, a lot of young men are killing themselves and killing their girlfriends and killing other dudes over women because they're uh easily fooled. They're gullible. They're believing a lie. They're listening to some girl tell them some sweet nothing. Oh, I love you. I love you. You're the only one. You do it the best. You're my, knight in shining armor. I love you. I love you. 9 out of 10 of them are lying. Okay. That's just the culture we've created. You got to live with it the same way that, everybody else does. It's just a fact of life. I don't mean to mansplain or bro, passport bro sphere Andrew Tate, you guys, but the red pill on that is out. And it's not by our doing. We're watching and listening to women create these obscene, unrealistic standards for men and then completely betray the first guy who's loyal to her. I mean, it's just horrifying to watch. And I feel bad for some of these guys because a lot of them are probably well-meaning and just really want to have a sort of traditional monogamous relationship with a woman and try and treat her right, with whatever that means in any time in culture or history. And we're seeing women who kind of have a kind of approach to relationships that says, if it doesn't benefit me to the level that I think it should, there are no rules. Right? The great example is if I'm unhappy in a marriage, then I'm going to get divorced. As though your happiness with a family, a complete family, a husband and children and extended family, in-laws and sibling in-laws and the whole nine, there's a little ecosystem there, community. If I feel unhappy, then I'm getting divorced and I'm going to break this family up. And I'm going to draw a third-party court, same guilty system we say is guilty when George Floyd dies. I'm going to go to that system and I'm going to draw them into my family's ecosystem on a consistent basis through, alimony or child support or family court or marriage court. So, men are starting to pull back from women, but you can't pull back all the way because humans are kind of just, they have those needs. So what you'll find in a lot of black communities is guys are believing these women, and they're falling in love. And as soon as their woman steps out or they're doing something with some other guy, they want to kill somebody or, something like that. That happens a lot. But I never understood it, if I see a guy and I want his woman and I want to talk to her and I think that I could shoot my shot is what they call it. I could shoot my shot and she'll go for it. That's one thing. Okay. But if you are so jealous of this dude for the woman it's different to want a woman and then being jealous of the man. Does that make sense, Tanner?
Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? It's different to say, damn, that woman's so gorgeous.
I just realized we're talking about, what is it, the 9th commandment? Thou shalt not covet?
Covet thy neighbor's wife. That's right.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Well, but, there's a caveat there on if that woman's your wife or not, but that's for another story. That's a theological technicality. But the point is, that's the same principle though, but the point is there's a difference between wanting somebody else's woman and then being jealous of them for having that woman.
Yeah.
And so what you'll find a lot of times, not to get too technical with the neighborhood thing that Kevin Gates is talking about, what he's saying is a lot of times you'll find it's not even so much that the dude wants the woman as so much as he don't want to see you with her. He don't want you to be happy. You look too happy for him. It makes him uncomfortable. How happy you look, how well off you're doing, right? So he wants your woman just to kind of try and tear that down. And that's a real sinister type of hatred. Kind of, dark sort of, I don't even, it's real sadistic, If you really want her, look, we all know the Notebook type story is like, I met a woman, we broke up, she got married, but I still love her, And so I find out she's getting married and I just can't take it. I got to confess my love. You can't marry this man because I'm still in love with you. That happens, okay? That's, it's kind of the romantic true love story. That ain't what's happening in black communities, okay? Let me be clear, okay? This ain't romance. This is sinister, straight up jealous Negro shit. Where he just wants her because you got her. And what's scary is he's willing to rob you and plot on you and talk bad about you, and in some cases even kill you because you have some woman that, I mean, the shit is, you black people out there, and the God bless, it's not widespread. It's not just like it's an epidemic in the black community, but it's starting to happen more and more, and you can't help but acknowledge the role that the music is playing in that, because the narrative is coming straight from the music. And that's what Kanye West said, the metronome or the 808s, and I'ma fuck your bitch, I'ma kill this nigga, I'ma fuck your bitch, I'ma kill this nigga. And it's a frequency, it's a trance, it's a sort of brainwashing tool, and I've experienced it firsthand. I've been fortunate enough to be able to survive it, coming from a community like that, and I hope to stay fortunate. But I do worry for my sons and my relatives and other people in those communities, because it's something that we're not addressing. We keep blaming white people. We keep saying it's white supremacy. And are there white people who benefit from the music? And are there white people who benefit from the prison system? And are there white people who benefit from, the drug traffic? Yes. The best thing we could do is stop being a pawn in their game. The most rebellious thing you could do, the most revolutionary thing you could do, is not be the white man's whip, okay, as Malcolm X would say. There's this famous scene where one of these brothers from the Nation of Islam is commissioned by, either other members of the Nation of Islam or some security agency like the CIA or FBI to assassinate Malcolm X. And he catches him. He's smart. He catches him before he does it. And he goes out and he talks to him and he says, brother, you don't be the white man's whip, right? And he's basically telling him, don't let your jealousy of me allow you to become a pawn in the game of the very thing you say is oppressing you. And I just think that there's something so profound about that. That has to be the new focus of Black America. And I think the MAGA movement is doing that, where it's saying, okay, we understand the history. There's been bad things that have went on, but we're not going to let that allow us to be the pawn in the game. We can't continue to be the pawn in the game. We can't keep saying because of slavery, because of Jim Crow, because of segregation, because of racism, we're going to run around our own neighborhood and kill each other. And what kind of fucking quacky ass shit is that? I mean, just on face value, it seems like a fucking psyop. Okay, the answer to black people by being revolutionary is there are no rules. We're going to destroy our own communities, turn them into drug-infested crack cities and kill each other. Come on, that can't be our answer. Shout out to Kevin Gates for telling the truth, and Kanye West, wherever he is, for telling the truth the way that he does. He's saying some crazy shit right now. Hail Hitler, I guess he's trolling, the Jewish community or whatever. I think it's an inappropriate thing to say, but the point is some of these guys are saying some honest things, and the momentum is swinging towards MAGA, and you got to love that.
You resigned from Congress in 2011 over a sexting scandal. 2 years later, you stepped down from the mayoral race after sexting again under the alias Carlos Danger. And then in 2016, you sent lewd texts to a minor and served 15 months in prison, in addition to becoming a registered sex offender. So with all that said, why do you think, or why should New Yorkers give you a chance at a political comeback?
Well, let me just say this. I mean, all of that happened, and I accept responsibility for it. You won't hear me do what some other people in public life have done, Donald Trump or Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams. I'm a victim. They persecuted me for no reason. I was dealing with very serious problems. I was dealing with what I now understand to be addiction. I lost my brother Seth to addiction. And I accepted. I didn't ask for a trial. I pled guilty, served my time in prison, served in a halfway house, served probation, went to try to do good work for the formerly incarcerated. And I guess what I'm saying to people is maybe don't vote for me in spite of what they know about me, but maybe consider that journey, that idea that we all go through things and we come out the other side. And also, what does it mean? I'm Jewish, but they have this notion in Catholicism around you suffer for a reason so you can be of service at the other end. So I'm not asking people, I'm doing the opposite of what a lot of politicians do when they're in my position. Ignore that problem, pretend it didn't happen, blame someone else. I am saying, yes, I did these things. I got into recovery. I try to make my life better. And now if I can be of service, and I'm a damn good politician. I come up with answers. Yep. I talk to people directly.
You are.
I don't try to butter over things. I try to be direct. then why shouldn't I? And if it's just because I have bad things in my past, that's not a good enough reason. I mean, look, all I can ever be is who I am right now. And that brought me to this space.
You got to be fucking kidding me. I mean, Anthony Weiner, this is how dishonest, this is how brazen these people are. This is a bold move here. And you got to understand, nothing happens on The View without the entire mainstream political establishment kind of giving it the wink and nod, the okay, because it's such a big platform and it just has such a cultural uh, uh, impact. This is a bold fucking move. I mean, for them to come out, for them to allow Anthony Weiner, disgraced, uh, you know, pedophile, really, disgraced pedophile Anthony Weiner, make the case that having bad things in your past shouldn't disqualify you from running for office, but then they'll say that everything in Donald Trump's past should disqualify him.
I also found it hypocritical how he said, "I'm not like the other politicians that will shy away from what I did and blame other people." But then that's exactly what he was doing, because he said, "I'm not shying away from my punishment like these other politicians."
Right.
It,
I mean, I just can't believe that they would actually. I can't believe that The View.
I feel like that's them testing waters, though.
Yeah,
because
no, it is.
like it's
That's a great
fucking
point.
gross, but it's the least. If you're gonna do anything to a minor, it's the least that
Okay,
you
and
know,
that's what
like,
I was.
it's fucking gross.
That's
but,
what I was gonna say. Okay,
yeah.
so let's be fair here. First, before I say that, I cannot believe that the View's production team, had their cue card guys in the audience hold up an applause card after he said that shit. I mean, that's just, if nothing else, The View should have kind of tried to remain neutral. If they're going to revive Anthony Weiner because they don't have anybody else to run, and don't get me wrong, Anthony Weiner was on a tear before this whole scandal went down. He was an up and rising sort of smash mouth, kind of a populist, sort of Bernie Sanders socialist type of, door kicking Democrat himself, kind of like a Paul Wellstone type of guy. So he did have a hot political career, but he doesn't have a shot in hell at being revived now. But even if they were going to try and float the idea as a cover for some of these other Democrat politicians who do still have ambitions but are tied to some similar funky shit, some funky scandals, sexual scandals, might I add, like Epstein, right? At least try to remain fucking neutral. They clapped for it. I mean, The View is now openly clapping for convicted pedophiles. Yeah. I mean, you're talking, this is, what's the organization that controls the FCC?
Yeah.
The Federal Communications Commission? I think it's the FCC. Where's the FCC? Remember when Eminem used to say, "Oh, the FCC won't let me be or let me be me, so let me," they were kind of controlling what you can say on TV and what you can't, right? Like you can't swear on television, right? And Eminem is kind of lost in his political worldview too, but he used to be a fight the establishment, fight the norm type of person, fight the homosexuality. And now all of a sudden he's giving over to the Democrats too. It's just fucking horrifying, especially what they did to his home city of Detroit. They basically ransacked it, okay, by selling the manufacturing off and pumping drugs into it. But, we'll save the Eminem podcast for another day. Point is, these people are openly applauding a convicted pedophile on daytime television. I'm talking mainstream talk show daytime television. It's fucking horrifying.
Dude, the guts that he has to get up on stage too. Like, that's how shameless he is, that he does something so gross
Shit.
and I'll go on The View and sit there and let you read to me what I'm accused of. Not accused, sorry. Actually,
but now part of that you got to admire. You got to say, man, that guy's got some fucking guts.
I
He really does. But, part of it you have to, and here, I'll say this in fairness. The sexual things have to be demarcated. Him sending a picture of his Johnson or whatever, sexting with somebody, some girl, if she's if she was of age, I don't want to hear about that shit. I don't give a fuck about that. I don't really think that was a scandal.
Yeah.
Because I'm just from a generation where if that's the case, put it this way. If sexting is a disqualifier, nobody under 30 is going to be able to be in office. I'm just telling you guys the honest God truth. Now, you might find some Mormons or some Amish or some people who just live a very singular type of lifestyle, but anybody who's been connected to the porn culture, the internet culture, or the social media and cell phone culture of the millennials on down, we've all sent inappropriate images. Is that a fair?
Yeah, that's a fair.
I mean, the numbers say it. I mean, the numbers of the internet and pornography tell you what it. And I'd venture to say even older generations are probably, guilty of a similar thing. So I don't give a shit who he was sexting, but once you cross over into pedophilia, that's the hard line, and we should be able to draw it real clear. And he served his time, he said, and who knows if that time was enough. Obviously, from my take, it wasn't, but a court of law found it, whatever. And can people revitalize their lives after pedophilia? My thought on it is no. But I'm not God, and so can God walk people through that and help people through that? I have to believe that as a Christian, that God can change people's hearts and minds who deal with the most perverse and sort of demonic of possession. And I do think that's a form of sort of demonic possession. But the fact that they fucking applauded it is sick, and it's dark, and it's exactly why you should never vote for these motherfuckers again. I don't care which Republicans stand up, except the ones who are Republicans against Trump, and they're very clear to see. I don't care which Republicans stand up. The Democrats are so discredited now because of shit just like this. The argument should be amongst Republicans of which Republicans we're going to vote for. The Democrats should be out. Unless you get an RFK Jr., who, again, is not really a Democrat. He's not a traditional, he's not a modern Democrat in the political sense. He's more of an independent. So, but this is a symptom right here. This is how crazy shit has gotten. The fucking View would have the audacity to say, oh, Royce White's unfit to be a United States Senator because he went to a strip club in Miami, which isn't even really the story. But even if that was the case, even if I was going to strip clubs, they're applauding a guy who was convicted and caught of sending inappropriate messages to underage girls. And I mean extremely underage, like 14. I'm not talking a 17-year-old girl walks into a party and she's a couple days away from graduation and wants to act a little more adult than she is. That's one thing. And I think a lot of guys are brought up on charges and things like that wrongly, where a girl who's 17, who looks mature and she lies about who she is, and you're at a party with alcohol. I already said I said the great litmus test of the Me Too movement is this. It's illegal for a man to have sex with a woman who's intoxicated, right?
Right.
And he's not. If he's intoxicated too, is no problem. But if he's not intoxicated and she is, it's illegal to have sex with her. She has a claim about consent, right? Which is crazy because it kind of promotes that men need to get drunk.
Yeah.
Get drunk just in case the woman is, or else the sex might come back to haunt you, right? That's a fucking perverse culture in and of itself. But if you reverse it and you say, if a man has been drinking and the woman hasn't, is it wrong for her to have sex with him? Everybody's answer is going to be no, right?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? I mean, if you flip it on its head, unless the man got super aggressive and abusive and he was like kind of in a drunken stupor and, kind of did something violent, then it's, but I'm just talking about a woman sees a guy at a bar that she likes and he's there drinking, and for whatever reason, she's not drinking. Is it predatory for her to have sex with that man? You already know the answer. The consensus amongst women would be no, it's not, because there's a physical difference between men and women. But I'm just saying there are differences. There are lines that we have to draw. I think a lot of people have a lot of problems calling the balls and strikes around this sexual stuff because nobody wants to talk about it. It's just taboo.
Yeah.
And the part of it being taboo is why Anthony Weiner, I mean, that name is so fucking ironic in and of itself. It's almost goofy, but it's why Anthony Weiner can come back now and try and make a political revival, because we are so taboo about sex. We can't just call the balls and strikes like, no, 14 is too young, dude.
Yeah.
There's no way you're telling us you didn't know she was 14. Okay? If a girl's 17 and she walks into a college frat party, and she's with some other girls who graduated last year from her high school, and they all hang out together. And she comes in the frat party, and she goes, "I'm the same age as all of them." Don't tell me the frat boys raped her. Okay, that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, to tell people they got to pull IDs out before the sex goes down. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying a lot of people go to jail for that, but you get my point. The 14-year-old thing is the problem with Anthony Weiner. He was sending inappropriate messages to and it just so happens that he is connected to a cabal of Democrats that are heavily implicated in child sex trafficking with Epstein and Hillary Clinton and Bill. And that whole crew is heavily implicated in child sex trafficking and pedophilia. And that's the problem. I don't really care that Bill Clinton got a blowjob from Monica Lewinsky. Is it disrespectful to the office for him to do it in the White House? Sure. But, that doesn't bother me as much. The Jeffrey Epstein thing bothers me, and it should bother everybody. So, is that the end?
Yeah, that's the end.
Good. Right on time. It's been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy. We took you right to the 2-hour mark. We'll be back on Friday with an episode about the pardon of Larry Hoover by Donald Trump and the history of the gangs in places like Chicago, which spanned to Minneapolis as well here in the Midwest. That's it for me. Hope you enjoyed it. FreePeopleRadio.com. We'll see you on the other side on Friday. Godspeed. God bless you. Everything's up on the bar. We're all in. We get to decide. Do you want to live on your knees, or do you want to die on your feet fighting? That's the decision you get to make now.